I, Vegeta, the Prince of all Saiyans, hereby command that you do not listen or subscribe to the Dragon Ball 4 Life podcast. Whatever you do, would you defy royalty? No! Bye!
Anime, we have your attention, please, and welcome to another episode of Dragon Ball 4 Life, where you come for the content, but you stay for the culture. And it's Friday. You know what that means. We have another brave challenger that has decided to answer the Dragon Call. But before we introduce our very special guest, you know who we are, the Fusion Dance Dons, aka the Mong Gods. I am Rojita, the Prince of all Saiyans, Mr. Matthew Porter, aka Matty Ice, here with my counterpart, the Oob to my Majin Buu, my Den Day One, going from the lookout to the cookout, Mr. Troto Trav. Talk to the people, Trav.
I mean, you know me. I stay chillin', and I love that women like Krillin. And we are back for another great Dragon Call interview. And now, Matt, look, as we grow older and wiser, you know, we learn more about the art of good communication. You know, maybe in the past, we might be more reactionary and one-sided, but as you hear more perspectives in life, it's important to hear both sides. In most scenarios, well, you see, Matt and I are no strangers to these Dragon Call interviews. And as the age-old saying goes, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. On today's episode, it's up to y'all to determine which side we reside on. Welcoming voice acting veteran and author, one of many talents, Mr. John Swasey. Thank you for joining us today on this latest edition of Dragon Call. We're so happy to have you here.
Trav, glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, John, you have a storied career in the voice acting world. For our more casual listeners, John is the voice of All for One, and I'm super proud of myself because I always get One for All and All for One mixed up all the time. Every single time. I'm like, oh, One for All, you saw what he did? Like, no, that's the quirk. That's not the villain. I do it every time, John. But yeah, you have been a plethora of characters. Me and Travis 90s kids, we like grew up, you know, with a lot of the work that you did in the early 2000s and whatnot. So with your career like spanning over 30 years, was voice acting always your passion? Because we found that a lot of the voice actors that we've had on kind of like stumbled into it. Like they really didn't have any aspirations to do it, and they just kind of got here.
No, you're exactly right. Most pardon me, most voice actors today, in my opinion, at least in the anime world, they really stumbled into it. I mean, everybody that's a voice actor really is an actor. I mean, we're actors, but we just kind of found that, for what it, however it happened, all of our eggs ended up in the voiceover basket. I know for me, I started acting in 1987, and then in about 93, 94. I live in Houston, and I started to really get into doing commercials and videos and stuff like that, but doing the voice part. So I was doing all this industrial voiceover and commercial voiceover and stuff like that. And then in 97, and I was putting my eggs in that basket with purpose. I mean, I was marketing myself, and I was, knock on wood, I was doing great. And in 1997, somebody asked me, hey, you ought to do anime. And I was like, what's anime? And they're like, Japanese animation. I said, well, I don't speak Japanese, so I can't, I don't know what you want me to do.
Right, sorry.
So can't help you there, pal.
The one prerequisite I need, I don't have.
So, obviously, it was like, no, we dub it. And there was a company in Houston called ADV Films, now called Sentai. And I went over there and auditioned and had actually a crappy audition, but I ended up getting cast. And my first show was a show called Golden Boy. And, to me, for years, it was just another gig. It was another acting job. I didn't look at it like, finally I'm doing anime or, I didn't even know I still didn't know what it was. I was like, why does everybody just have blue spiky hair? I don't understand what's going on. And so anyway, a few years go by and the studio grows, and then Funimation pops up in Dallas, which is about 4 hours away from Houston. And I started working up there and, driving back and forth. And then I started directing at ADV. And then started going to conventions. And then, just kind of fast forward. Now I work at Sentai as a director, a full-time director and voice actor, and go to conventions almost every weekend. I mean, so it has completely consumed my life to the point where I don't even, I don't even have time sometimes to do other things, other acting jobs. I have to turn them down. I don't have, I've got an audition today, as a matter of fact, I've got to turn in, and I'm just trying to figure out when I'm going to do it.
There you go.
But that all
that's not a terrible problem to have.
Said, I'm I feel very, very blessed, and I love my life, and I love what I do, and I'm thankful and grateful for the opportunities and the where I am and all that kind of stuff. It's just it's really great.
No, so John, I kind of want to dive more into like the anime side of it, since you kind of like got into it post fact. But something that I actually just realized when I was kind of like going through your catalog of different characters that you had, I don't know if it's like by accident or on purpose, but Trav, if you've noticed, like the voice actors that we've had on, whether they're like the protagonists or antagonists, they typically are that. Like all the characters they play are like either the good guys for whatever show or the bad guys. But John, you've interestingly enough
seen a correlation,
done both. Like you've played like the villain, like you're the villain on My Hero Academia, but then you also have played like protagonists in like Fullmetal Alchemist and stuff like that. So do you have a preference? Like, do you prefer like to play the bad guy versus the good guy? Is there like a different like regimen that you go through, like when you're prepping for a role, playing the protagonist versus the antagonist?
Do you mean scowl in the mirror?
Where'd you go? There you are.
We can still hear you. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I play. It's funny. I play a lot of villains and a lot of dads, and sometimes they're the same. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have a preference. I just play a lot more villains than good guys. When I started doing this, there weren't many actors that were doing anime. They called on the ones that were doing it, called on us a lot to do a lot of different things. And now there's a ton of actors that are trying to do it and are doing it and doing a very nice job. But because of that, I don't have as many, I don't want to say opportunities. I have as many opportunities as I want. But there's more fish in the pool. There's more people to choose from. So, whereas in the old days, they'd be like, John, you're going to play this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, Now it's like, we just need you to play this guy. We've got the other actors to play these other parts. So, and because of that also, I've kind of gotten into a place now where I play a certain type of character. My voice is suited for a certain type of character. And I think when people think of me, they think of, oh, John would be good for that character or that kind of thing. So, yesterday or the other day, I was doing a panel with Todd Habercorn. He's up at this convention too, and he said something that I've never really thought of, but I really thought it was very apropos and very concise. But as actors, as voice actors doing anime especially, the studios have multiple studios doing stuff. So you may go into the studio and you work on this show for 2 hours, then you go across the hall and work on My Hero Academia for an hour or two, and then, maybe go over and do some One Piece and then go. So we're kind of like, this is the analogy he used, we're kind of like studio musicians. And we have, depending on what show we're in, we have to know how to play that music. You know what I mean? So it's like, 1 minute we're working with, you know, I want to say BB King, but he's dead. So why would I say that? Anyway, the point is, you know, we're working with a blues musician. Now we're going to work with a classical musician. Now we're going to work with a rock and roller. Now we're going to work with a rapper. Now we're going to work with a, you know, whatever. And as actors, it's our job to know how to fit in there. So, the process for me is no different doing a villain or doing a hero or, you know, doing Farmer #1. Farmer with a so it's all
Farmer Bob. Absolutely.
Have you ever, when you've had to record for different shows and within the same day, have you ever went into a different studio session and started speaking in your previous character's voice? And
wrong show.
Let me switch up real quick.
No, I've never done that. I have been at a convention and signed the wrong quote. And I'll put, you know, I'm like doing a bunch of autographs and I'll sign something. I'm like, shit, that's not what he says. That's what All for One says, you know, or
but, you ask for their back. Like, can I just cross that off real quick?
Right.
But yeah, because usually, especially when you're recording, like All for One right now is fresh. Crocodile. There's a handful of characters that I do. That I know the voice. I mean, I've done them for years and all this. Taking on like a new voice or doing something that I haven't done in a long time. Like if you were to say, hey, they're bringing Trigun back and you're going to be Gas back again. I would have to hear his voice, how I did it. I don't remember how. Okay. You know, that was a long time ago. And I'm you know, the good news is I know I can do it because I did it. But I'd have to hear it. So that's the only really time that we get in trouble for that. Not in trouble, that's not the right word. But we get kind of caught up and confused or whatever. But no, it's never like, hey, wait a minute, that's not the right voice.
That's good.
No, I love that. Me and Travis say all the time, 'cause, like at our core, outside of us, wanting to use our platform, provide a voice to the voices and everything. Like we're fans. Like when it comes down to it, so it's just like I love when we have these conversations with like people in the industry and voice actors, like the through lines. 'Cause like you being on Trigun, I didn't even know that was part of like your resume. Vash the Stampede is like my favorite anime character of like all time. So it's like, yeah, like moments guy, like man. This. Yeah, like that's like my guy. And I was super against like the reboot. Like I was just like, man, why do they always want to ruin like good things? Like we didn't need another Trigun. I still watched the old one, but it's really good. It's like it's really, really, really good.
So the whole thing's been rebooted.
So it's crazy how they did it. I'm not like to be as least amount of spoilery as for people who are listening to this that might have not watched it. So they like modernized it, but they took like all the main story beats, like the really important stuff that happened, like the Knives storyline, Meryl, Millie, Wolfwood and his past and everything. They took like all the main story beats, but like changed them. And even in some cases, like gave them to different characters. So it's like, it caught you off guard, but then like if you remember the show, like, oh, I remember that storyline and it was somebody else. So it's like a whole different show. Like it's like a completely different show, but all the original English voice cast is still there. So it's like you have like the nostalgia and everything. So it's like it's gotcha. Really good. I was very pleased. Very pleased. And they go into like, Vash and Nas being plants more. Like they go deeper into that.
I got
like
you.
From a different planet.
Well, I'm just assume either they recast me or my character didn't come back. So,
no, Gasback, he wasn't in there. But I think it was only 12 episodes, so they like stopped it. And there's obviously teasing like a season 2. So there's hope for you. If y'all are hearing this casting team, give John his job back.
Really, that Fire Force gets to a point.
Look, that's me and Travis show. Another instance of like the through lines of talking to people. It's just crazy.
I'm hoping that they just get to a point where Lord Death shows up.
Yeah, we've literally been like waiting for season 3 for so long.
Well, we can keep our fingers crossed, but we'll see. Of course, it'll probably be like he shows up and just goes Reaper chop, and that's it, or something.
It's like all that build up. Oh, okay, all right.
Right, exactly. I always forget that's like a Fire Force is like a. So was that ever confirmed that is like a prequel to Soul Eater, or that's just like a fan theory?
I've been told that it's a prequel. I don't know, but I've been told it is. Somebody leaked out the other day, and he's here. I need to talk to him about it, but he's in Fire Force, and I said he tweeted or he texted me, and he said, "Hey man, I don't know if it's going to be next season, but I think you have a character that's coming back." So I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, breaking news. Put the sound in there.
He said, "Open up your schedule this time and time."
Don't be busy on this day.
Yeah. Right. That would be cool. That would be really cool. And then what would really be cool is if Lord Death got a Funko Pop. That would.
Ooh.
Mikey loves Funko Pops. Matt just got him a Bakugo one for his 30th.
That's dope. That's super, super dope. And then just kind of circling back to bring it full circle just for this line of questioning, like being in the industry now with anime and stuff, like have you become a fan, or because like you found it after the work, is it just kind of like business as usual for you, or like have you been able to like get into the fandom?
Yeah, I'm kind of a little of both camps. I work, people ask me like, what's your favorite anime? And I'm like, well, when I direct all day long. And so really the show that I'm most invested in is the one I'm directing. But that being said, I don't watch anime all day long in the studio and then come home and unwind by watching more anime. If I watch anything else, my kids, my wife, the dog. But I, also because of these conventions, I'm just floored and privileged and honored and humbled and just at the way this industry has grown. I mean, when I started doing this in '97, there was maybe a shelf at Blockbuster where you could get video.
Suncoast videos.
All it came on a VHS tape. Now, and there might be 1 or 2 conventions a month somewhere. Now, this week, right now, there are like 10 conventions going on around the country, around the world, for the price of a cup of coffee at Starbucks. You can have High Dive, which is Sentai, that's their streaming platform. For another cup of coffee, you could have Crunchyroll. For another cup of coffee, you could have Netflix, and it's like literally if you just cut out one meal a month, you could have Netflix, Amazon, High Dive, and Crunchyroll, and have access to more anime than you could ever watch in 4 lifetimes. So
the evolution of anime,
accessibility now with streaming has made and also the pandemic helped. Oddly enough, we all got watching Tiger King, and so people started watching anime.
We did both.
Right? And
so funny. Me and Trav actually like semi like when our first podcast was technically second, but like the first that we did where we like co-headed it together. We started it during the pandemic, and like part of like our launch was we did like a review of Tiger King episodes.
Oh, nice. That's funny.
It is crazy to think about just like how far anime has come, because Matt and I have talked about this before, was that back in the day when it was in like the blockbusters, for some reason the anime anime was not only was just in the back, but it was always like right next to the adult film
Every time.
section.
Right.
And so as kids, like we'd be like looking there, and like we'd have to like look over our shoulders because like, Mom, Dad, I'm trying to find.
I promise,
Gundam
I'm
Wing
looking at the cartoons.
Well, really, anime. I mean, as we know, when people say, "What is anime?" and I say, "Anime is Japanese animation, and it's everything from Hello Kitty to Hello Kitty, and every
Bars.
But it's and people that don't understand it, they're like, well, that's just like porn. I'm like, HBO is porn. Netflix has porn on it. I mean, every show,
Right.
So to sit there and demonize anime. Now, there are shows, obviously there's hentai, but there are shows,
Right.
some, risky content and fan service and all that kind of stuff. But there's some shows, like I'm directing a show right now called The Eminence in Shadow. And it's just a straight up cool show. There's nothing, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's on
Awesome.
on High Dive. So, but it's just a great show. I mean, I'm quitting here.
Mortals, listen up. It's your god of destruction, Beerus here. Subscribe and follow the Dragon Ball for Life podcast, or else you shall be erased from existence. Hakai.
We back.
My wife was trying to reach me. So,
No, handle the important stuff.
yeah.
We don't want to get you in trouble.
Exactly.
You go out of town and don't answer my phone
Yeah, I
calls?
know.
I promise I'm working.
All right.
He's like, interview. I said, I'm doing an interview. Really? Is that what you're calling this? An interview?
Look,
It's like when rappers tell their girlfriends, "I'm in the studio."
I'm in the studio. That's Trav. That's a perfect parallel to the anime section being next to the adult section. Like, no, I'm looking at the cartoons. I
Right.
promise.
Nothing wrong going.
Well,
nothing bad
remember,
going
Matt,
on here.
I learned the hard way about the vast just the variety of anime. When I first got into anime, I was like, Dragon Ball Z was my gateway, then watched Gundam Wing. So one time I was at home, and I had to be at least like just sixth grade, I believe. And I was on demand. There was the Anime Network, and I went to this. I just read the description. Mind you, I should have looked at the rating next to it, but I didn't. And it was like something about like gargoyles and vampire hunters or something like that. I'm like, oh, this sounds really cool. First scene was like supremely dark, like the darkest I've ever seen any sort of animation. I was like, is this what I? This is not like
I don't know if I like anime anymore.
So I learned quick that there's definitely levels to it.
And the way the universe works, that would have been the time like your mom walked past your room, like right on that
Right.
scene, like this is what you've been doing.
Exactly.
It's I mean, but again, you can watch. I mean, you turn on the TV and just watch regular American television, and you're going to see the same level of stuff. It's not like it's any worse.
No. It went from as a kid, people being like, or once I got into high school, why are you still watching cartoons, to now people are texting me, yo, I need your latest anime recommendations. I'm like, I'm gonna get into it. It's just crazy how the conversation has shifted, and now how people just more openly want to watch it and talk.
Well, I think too, it's our American consumption of it has grown significantly. A lot of people that watch it have gotten older. Now their kids watch it, I mean, I have people come up to my table all the time and say, I grew up watching you, and now my kid watches you, and blah, blah, blah. And, it's very humbling. It makes me feel old, but it's very humbling. But, the other thing is that the people in Japan that are creating the anime, they now, and I'm just guessing, I don't really know, no one's ever told me this, but now that the American market and really the world, but especially the Western world, English-speaking Western world, is so prolific and so wants to consume so much of this stuff, it's, they're not just creating it for the Japanese audience anymore. They have to take into consideration what would the American audience want. Now, early on, and still today, it's not totally tailoring it for the American audience, because part of it is we like to celebrate the Japanese culture. We like that, right? But I would guess that, now when they're doing shows, the writers that are writing the shows or the people that are creating it, they're not the people that created DBZ. They're the people that were kids watching that. Now they're creating their own stuff. And so it's evolved as well. And I think you're just getting I look at the stuff that we're doing and I'm like, just the animation difference is off the charts. You can tell when something was made in 1980 versus, I had a guy come up the other day. He brought a DVD of a show I did called Aura Battler Dunbine that I think I did in 2000. 23 years ago. And it was one of my first. It was one of my first leads, and it was mind-boggling. I maybe signed one of those a year. It's like, but that's what his show was. But now you look at stuff, and that just looks like old Robotech stuff. It's just so it's just amazing how the animation, the production value, the writing, the storylines, all that has just grown and really taken on new life, I think.
Yeah, we gotta ask: have you seen an anime movie in the theaters in 4DX?
Have what? Say that again.
Have you seen an anime movie in the theaters in 4DX?
I have not.
What an experience!
You should. You should. It's quite the journey.
That was. I've only seen the only movie I've actually seen. I did a movie called The Boy and the Beast by Mamoru Hosoda, and he did Wolf Children and Summer Wars, and he's kind of like Miyazaki. He makes movies.
Okay.
And I went and saw that at the theater. It wasn't in 4D, all that, but it was pretty cool to see this thing blown up, to movie screen size. But yeah, that's another thing. These movies that they're doing, the DBZ movies or, whatever, and they're getting these little theatrical runs and they're killing at the box office, It's amazing.
Absolutely. And on that topic, because I want to get into, you being all for one with how big My Hero is and whatnot. I kind of want to go over your recollection of getting that role. But just between, you had brought up Dragon Ball. If you go through your catalog, you've kind of been in almost every major anime franchise, of the big ones of the past 30 years. Are you just a big game hunter, or are you just kind of just stumble into these jobs and then they take off?
Yeah. I really, when I started doing My Hero, I had no idea what it was. I was literally at the studio at Funimation working on another show, probably One Piece or something, and they said, "Hey,
something small."
But they want you to come in and read, again, go from this studio, now go over to this studio, and early on, All For One didn't have a whole lot to say. It was he'd get a report back, and I'd walk in the studio, and they go, "Okay, kind of here's what's going on," and we go, "You ready?" and record, and my All For One would go, "Excellent. Okay, thanks for coming in. That's all. That's all we got." And I was just like, "Well, who is this guy?"
Right. We got craft services. You want to hang out?
That did not take 30 minutes. Okay, but thanks for bringing. And so a lot of times I don't know, and it's really fun for me because the fans do know, and especially if they read the manga and stuff like that. I'll get people coming up to me all the time going, "Hey, what's about to happen? I'm like, no, why don't you tell me? And they're like, oh, well, he's about to break out of prison, and he's gonna. And I don't read the manga. I like to be surprised, but I will say that for years I thought, there's no way that he's gonna just end by sitting in prison and dying. There's got to be something, right? There's got to be some epic showdown, final. He may die, but it can't be in prison. And sure enough, he breaks out and does this whole meld with Shigaraki, and they become one, and it's all part of his master plan. And so I'm really, really excited to see what happens in season 7. So
I was gonna say, is that like a bittersweet moment for you, like when fans tell you like what's coming up, because it's like you're excited that you get to do it. It's like, now I gotta wait.
Yeah,
like, that's so far away.
It really is. Yeah. It's kind of like, well, I want that to happen right now. I'm ready to go now.
Said, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to rock.
Can we just like record this? I know it's not going to come off for like 2 years. Let's just do this part now, though.
Here's what I was thinking. Here's the path.
Or we can.
He said, I have some notes.
Then it's done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's just just get it in the can. Don't have to worry about it later.
Checking my schedule, and I'm free now.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that kind of anticipation though is good. I remember in season 6 when we started recording it, I was like all geared up because I record in Houston. We have there's a studio in Houston that we can remote record with Funimation. So I go, instead of driving up to Dallas, I'll do this remote recording. And my friend who runs the studio called me up and he goes, hey man, so they need you for something. I said, is it for My Hero? And he goes, no, that started already, but they haven't asked for you for that. And I'm like, well, if it started already, what the hell's going on with All for One? Well, then, here I am getting all paranoid. And then the next phone call is, so they need you for like 3 hours for All for One, and it's like this epic thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And before I know it, I'm like, just every week I'm going in the studio doing it because it's just, they release one episode at a time. And so it just kind of snuck up on me, so now I'm now, and then it ended. It ended kind of like it began. I was like, I didn't get a phone call, and then I did get a phone call, and then I didn't get a phone call. I didn't get a phone call. I didn't get a phone call. I was like, oh, I guess the season's over, because they don't tell us like, and that's a wrap for you. That's your last episode of the show, and.
Oh, you just don't get called back in. That's crazy.
Just in limbo, and then you see your episode.
But a lot of that, they keep us in the dark a lot. I mean, there's just no, we don't get scripts ahead of time. We don't get. The only heads up we get is, hey, I need to book you for a session in 2 days, or whenever you're available. So it's a little. What's the word I'm trying to say? We're kind of like mushrooms, man. We're just kept in the dark and fed a lot of shit. So,
why do you think that is? Given how popular, like a show as My Hero is, like you would just think it's going to be successful. But so I'm just curious, like why are you guys left in the dark like that?
Especially because y'all work. It's not like you're part of a sitcom where it's just like, no, this is all you're going to be doing for like the next 8 years, like a live TV show. Like voice actors, like you guys have your fingers in so many different things at the same time. So like Trevor was saying, like to just kind of be like that vague about your scheduling. It's like, how's that productive?
Well, for one thing, they in order to combat piracy, this is really where it all comes from. In order to combat piracy, we have to get the product online, on the shelf, whatever you want to say, to the public as fast as possible in relation to when the Japanese release it. So, it used to be a show would come out in Japan and then, okay, we're going to dub it. Okay, we're going to dub it into English and we'll release it a couple months later. And, then the fans can have a subtitle or a dub version. The problem is, or still is, I guess, but with a show like that's very popular, the fans want to see it now. So if it comes out in Japan, I mean, you'll get fan subs and fan dubs and stuff, and they'll just, try to create it themselves. And but they'll steal it. And so in order to avoid that, it's like, it's like legalizing pot. I mean, you want to take away the criminality aspect, legalize it. And then there are no more drug lords because you can buy it at the store.
I wonder if that's how DBZ abridged came to be, because it's essentially just stolen content re-recorded.
I think DBZ Abridged came about because you had some fans and what they wanted to do was just have fun with it.
Yeah.
They weren't trying to get it to the public so you can see it. They were twisting. They were doing Mad Libs with it and doing bad lip reading kind of stuff.
It turned out really well for them.
It was. They were just having fun with it, so it was different. So now the point is that the companies really try to keep wraps on what's being distributed, what's coming out. Because they want to have more control over it. So they just don't let the actors know because, the actors are all on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all this. And, if you let something slip, it could ruin a whole marketing campaign because an actor went, "Hey, everybody, I'm in the booth working on my new character. I can't say what it is, but he's a bad guy and he's in a show called, well, I won't say the name, but it has MHA as the letters." Everyone, fans are so savvy.
Yeah.
I've done stuff where hey, everybody, it's your old pal, John Swasey, and I'm here in the booth working on a new project. Can't tell you what it is, but you're going to love it. Stay tuned. And I will literally get messages going, "Are you working on Eminence and Shadow?" I'm like, how'd you know that?
They it's April. They take 6 months between seasons. If he records now,
that's all the way you move your lips, and this is how you voice your character in that role. So that's how I get.
And the other thing too is they're working on it. So I don't know how long it takes them to do a season in Japan. To animate it, record it, do all that kind of stuff. So we'll just have to wait. But that's all right. The cool thing for me is that. At least for the foreseeable future, I have some job stability in that, at least another season or two.
Right.
So part of my ignorance. So is simulcast actually really simulcast, or it's just sooner than usual, or is it actually really?
It's sooner than usual. It's just
the lies we've been told.
Semantics.
Funimation calls them simulcast. We call them at Sentai. We call them dubcasts, and it's just we're trying to get the show out as quickly as possible.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't. But I know at Sentai, we'll release anything that streams on our stuff. If it's a new release, it'll get released as a subtitled version first, and then the dub will come a month later. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Simulcast sounds cooler than expedited cast.
Saying sooner than what you're used to is a mouthful.
Coming soon.
Yeah. doesn't trip off the tongue as well.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I kind of want to dive into some other characters you had played, because when we had pre-spoke, you had mentioned the children's book, and I want to definitely allow you to kind of go into greater detail about that. But we had kind of mentioned the crazy schedule that you and other voice actors have. And, we were fortunate enough to have, Chris Sabat, the legendary Chris Sabat, on the podcast. Do y'all two always play people that have issues, or that's just kind of a happy coincidence? Because it's he's All Might, you're All For One, you were Doria, he was Vegeta, even in Full Metal Alchemist, you guys always seem to be at odds, your characters.
Make sure I'm going.
I think that's
Chris.
just the luck of the draw. I think Chris is such an amazing actor and does such a great job. I think it's more of a coincidence. At least from my point of view. Maybe he's got some ulterior motive. I have
You're his nemesis in real life.
yeah.
He's a method actor.
If I'm going to play that role, I want John Swasey to play the villain.
Chris's method
Would be fine for me. I would love it if he said that.
Right? Yeah, right. You're like, hey, I'll take that.
Like, right? Like, that's for us. That's forever work right there. Like,
Yeah.
I'll take it. But any time we're fortunate enough to have somebody who had anything to do with Full Metal Alchemist, we always have to ask the question: were you as emotionally devastated with the Night of the Chimera Cry episode, like with what happened with Nina? Were you as emotionally devastated as we, the fans, who had to witness that go down? And we still have PTSD about that to this day.
we asked Brina herself when we had her on.
Yeah, the voice actress who played we had her on, and she was like, she went into it, but it was like, that's such like an emotionally damaging thing, like to anime fans, like across the board. like just all those, like that Big Brother thing just gets us all.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I've always thought that Full Metal is like a gateway anime. It's such a good story.
Mm-hmm.
It's well acted. It's well written. It's well done. It's just well done. It's a great show, and when you watch it, it's like you're drawn into it. And for me, I was very touched by it, and it was a while ago, but it moved me pretty significantly. I felt, tearing up and welling up and just, like, man, but you don't, and what's significant to me about it is you don't run into a lot of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gendo from Evangelion had that kind of effect.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, season 5 of My Hero, I had the same kind of experience where I was just it wore me out just experiencing the whole thing, whether I was acting or watching or whatever. So yeah, it definitely has an effect, but it's just really solid storytelling. It's not some stupid, because sometimes animes will have like a really cool storyline going, and then the last episode is just like, well, that was stupid.
The payoff, ain't it?
Yeah, that wasn't any good.
Got a full arc, and you're like,
My
that's how
Hero
it ends.
So the moral arc, Trav. That's what you're
For Full Metal.
The Goku Black arc.
Oh my god! Such promise. Such promise. But it's crazy, John. Like you saying, like in the fields and stuff. You talking about season 5 of My Hero. Trav hasn't seen it yet, so I won't like go too super deep into it. But the episode, like the third to last episode of this past season, when Deku and Class 1A like had like their standoff, man, I was bawling like a baby. I don't think I've ever been like that touched by like an anime in my life. Like I was like, oh, I'm about to call my friends.
I love you guys.
Yo, like man, I was one. It was a really great episode, like you said. Like just like great storytelling can move you like that, but just like it hit me in all the feels. Like every emotional cord I had to be plucked. I was plucked. I was like, man. Yeah. This is crazy.
The last time I had that was the end of the Chimera Ant arc in Hunter x Hunter with Meruem. The way that ended, I was like, this is the first time in a show I've actually like felt for the villain. Like,
yeah, the villain needs love, man.
Yeah.
John said, yeah, support my guys.
Support us.
Yeah.
But
they're really only villains to the good guys. To the bad guys, they're just people.
There you go.
True.
Thanos wasn't wrong.
Right.
He might have went about it.
He raised some valid points.
Right. He wasn't wrong.
Eric and I had this conversation at a panel one time. Eric Vale, and these bad guys, they don't. I don't think they think of themselves as like dastardly and wicked and evil. It's like, I'm going to do this. I don't care what happens. I don't care who it affects, but this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. So that's the end of the story. I'm going to do it.
Point blank, period. and it's funny you say that because like Trey, I've said this to you before, like off screen, like I was a super duper, I was a really big Case Closed fan. Like loved that show.
Oh yeah,
loved that show. I hated that they always gave like the murderer like a good reason to have murdered. Like just let some of these people be like psychotic deranged killers. Like it was always like a sympathetic villain at the end. like, oh, this guy murdered my sister. I was like, oh, well, damn, now I'm sad you're going to jail for the rest of your life. But it's like every episode they had like a good reason as to why someone was killed. I was just like, man, like everybody just can't be justified in murder. But they gave it to him. But John, I know we don't have much more time with you, but I do want to give you a chance to like talk about your children's book because you do much more than just voice acting. And big part of this show is that we want to, shine the light for voice actors of your caliber to like let people know about other stuff that you got going on. So tell us about this book that you got cooking up.
Well, thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
A friend of mine, we collaborated and wrote a children's book, created it, and hired an artist and named Blake Shepard, who's actually a voice actor in anime as well. And it's a story of a spider monkey named Zeke who swings through the jungle and he keeps running into things and crashing into the ice cream man and the mayor's wife. And it turns out he needs glasses. And, so he's afraid, but he doesn't want to go to the eye doctor because he's afraid. But he ends up going to the eye doctor and everything turns out fine. He gets his glasses. Now he can see great. And he goes swinging through the jungle. It's kind of, they're for learning to read books. I mean, there's 5, 6, 7-year-olds or younger maybe. But it was beautifully illustrated by Blake Shepard. This is the first book, and we've written another one. We've just never done anything with it. And frankly, we really haven't done much with this one. You can go to a website called jungleberg.com and you can buy the book. There's an audio version as well.
We'll put the link in the description. We'll throw it in there.
It's jungleberg.com.
BERG.
Jungle BURGH.
BURGH. All right. Okay. Got it.
But we really, the idea is that we were trying to create stories that kids, the storylines are things that kids have to deal with, and it's a big deal. But to an adult, you're just like, dude, just man up, just do it. You're making more out of this. But to the kid, it really is something.
Right.
And it's like the second book is about a squirrel who's afraid of heights. And it's not about overcoming your fear of, man up or squirrel up or whatever. You
nut up.
Go climb that tree.
Nut up or shut up.
It's not about that. It's about, it's okay to have a fear of heights, but you're going to have to learn how to live with it and do a workaround. So that's kind of what the premise of the books is. And we really, like I said, I mean, I appreciate you letting me bring it up. We haven't really done much with it. But, I really want to, when I can find the time, jump back into it and really start to push it out there. Because what I'd really like to do eventually is turn it into an animated children's series. So
pretty awesome.
Let's go.
But, that's a long way down the road, so I probably ought to get started on it.
First, the hardest step's the first step. That's what they say.
Yeah.
So
you got to come back on here for when it's back.
Oh, 1,000%.
Deal.
1,000%. Well, John, before we let you get out of here, we always do ask if there's any wisdom that you kind of have, I guess because I'm sure you're asked this question all the time. What would be your go-to advice, or maybe the best piece of advice that you were given for somebody that may want to pursue voice acting?
Well, the answer is very simple, and that's become an actor. Learn the art, the skill of acting. A lot of people get all caught up in buying equipment, and I liken it to learning to play the guitar. You can go to the guitar shop and buy a $3,000 Fender Stratocaster and get a Marshall stack amp and pedals and switches and all kinds of things, and come home and put it all together and plug it in, flip it on. But if you don't know how to play the guitar, it's stupid. It's pointless. So, learn how to play, learn how to act, and be patient, because, it isn't going to happen overnight, I mean, I tell people who become an actor, oh, yeah, well, I used to do some theater in high school. Okay. I mean,
and
what? Like, if you went to the doctor and he goes, I once dissected a frog in high school, so that's kind of my training. Like, well, no, I'm not that voice acting is equivalent to becoming a medical doctor, but it is a skill set, and you can't just, I mean, you might be able to, I guess anybody can, do it, but it really does take work and training, and, you need to know things like how to read the script and how to just pull up an emotion and stuff like that. And it's not something like, don't mimic, don't go, well, I can do a great All Might. Well, Chris Sabat's pretty well got that wrapped up. He doesn't.
Right. Job's pretty secured.
So, the biggest thing is just learn to act, and then this will come.
Yeah, Trav says all the time, in regards to like the podcasting world, it's so much more than just talking into a mic. Like that. Exactly. Like that's the easy 100%. Part. Like,
there's so much more to it. So much more to this kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's the advice I'd give.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, John. We want to, like I said, highlight you, put you up on the pedestal, give you your flowers in real time. If you want to let listeners know where they can find you, what you got going on, how they can support.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at John Swasey. It's, pretty easy to find me. I'm pretty transparent and stuff. But just go friend me. I don't do Twitter, so don't look for me there.
The Wild West.
I'm just not a big fan of Twitter. Never have been.
Mainly
because I never knew how to do it.
I'm with you again.
I got so frustrated.
Like, same boat.
Look, Trav's my Twitter wizard. Like, I was like, you, I'll handle the Instagram, bro. You got the Twitter. Yeah. Trav, do you have anything that you want to say before we close this bad boy out?
Nah, I just wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast today. And like I said, we're holding you to it for once you get back to writing your children's book. We're going to promote that again. But thank you so much for joining us. And we always just love having these conversations with voice actors as yourself.
Thank you both, guys. This has been a real delight. And I've really enjoyed our conversation, man. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, John, like we always say here on the podcast, like once you come on, you are a forever return guest. So like Trav was just saying, we definitely would love to have you back on when this book comes out, when this animated series off this book hits the ground running.
Speak it into existence.
We're manifesting. We'll have it. But everybody, the lifers, the fans out there, thank you to everybody that came out to Cospalooza. It was a smash. We had a great night. Part 2 will be in October. More details will be coming out about that as we go on. But like we always say here on the Dragon Ball for Life podcast, whether you watch it or you read it, we all need it. So open up your nerd eye and we will see you next time on Dragon Ball for Life. Dodon Ray. Bow. Shout outs to super producer Mikey.
And shout out to Yali.
Wow.
This is All for One. All is well, for I am here. And you've been listening to the Dragon Ball for Life podcast. Now, do it again.